Trump and North Korea, and this little back and forth between these two morons who run both countries, the back and forth has prompted Congress to do something that it hasn't done in more than 40 years since Nixon, and that's to formally consider changes to the law that give American presidents the sole authority to launch nuclear weapons. And that's understandable. Trump is... If there's anybody in the United States who shouldn't have that kind of power, it's Donald Trump. Now, in a system that, our system that relies on checks and balances, I just find it insane that something like the launch of nuclear weapons is not included in that checks and balances formula. The truth is, as the New York Times has pointed out, is that Trump, like all post-World War II presidents of this country, Trump now is uniquely empowered to order a preemptive strike on North Korea or anywhere else. And we're talking here about the authority to unleash thousands of nuclear weapons within minutes, and with very little time to consult with people much smarter than this moron who is the President of the United States, who have had more experience, he's had none, who understand foreign relations to a far greater degree, for right or for wrong, than Trump does, who have a more nuanced view of what nuclear weapons have been used for all these years. But they had a formal hearing on this issue, first one in 41 years, and it occurred in the Senate Foreign Relations Committee on Tuesday, 2 days ago. And Senator Christopher Murphy, a Democrat of Connecticut, outlined the stakes at what we're all facing here with a president who is so unstable, so volatile, has a decision-making process that nobody understands. He says one thing at 2 o'clock, at 10 past 2, he's completely reversed it, and at 2:15, he's reversed it back again. That kind of shit. And someone this unstable, this insane, that's a pretty good word too, might at any moment, and this is not to frighten us, this is just a fact, might at any moment decide to launch nuclear weapons. And there's no one to stop him. Which to me is just madness in and of itself. Somebody as ridiculously unqualified to be president as this moron, Trump, and he has sole power to launch nuclear weapons against anyone? Senator Bob Corker, the Tennessee Republican, who is the chairman of that committee, the Senate Foreign Relations Committee. And you know, he recently voiced concern that Trump could lead the country to World War III, as the capability of this mad son of a bitch to lead the country into world. Now, World War III, what was it that Einstein famously said at the conclusion of World War II, I believe? He said, I know the next war will be fought with nuclear weapons, and the one after that will be fought with stones and clubs. Trump could lead the country to World War III, which essentially would be the end of humanity. The end of everything, really. And Corker said it's important to examine what he called the realities of this system by which the use of nuclear weapons is decided. And of course, Corker's absolutely right. Now, This moron that is now president has brought this examination of his authority to launch nuclear weapons. He brought it on himself. His erratic way of being president, his taunting of somebody who is as unstable as he is, these threats to rain fire and fury on North Korea and to destroy the country, his talk about nuclear weapons, his glib talk, he doesn't know what the fuck he's talking about, but he still talks about it. All of this raises serious questions about his willingness to incite something as horrible as nuclear war. The Times points out that Trump is engaged in a dangerous game of chicken with Kim Jong-un, North Korea. Both of them, Kim and Trump, threatening each other to destroy each other's country, as if it's just their country. There are, 35 million North Koreans. There's 330 million Americans. But these two assholes act as though this is mine's bigger than yours, and I'll show it to you in just a second after I fucking nuke your country. I mean, this is madness. It is. Yeah, it's madness, all right. It's madness. Now, how did Trump get control, the sole control? It comes from the Atomic Energy Act of 1946, I've read. That was passed when there was more concern about hawkish generals. We had some generals leading the Joint Chiefs and the Strategic Air Command at the time, the late 40s into the 50s, who really wanted to just nuke the whole fucking world. They subscribed to the theory that a nuclear war was fightable and winnable, neither of which is true. But they were insane. So it was absolutely necessary for civilians to keep control of what was going on. Here's a guy, C. Robert Kaler, a retired Air Force general who once headed the Strategic Command that oversees the nuclear arsenal, said at the hearing 2 days ago that the military could refuse to follow what it considers a disproportionate and unnecessary order. He said he did not know what the president's response would be in such a case if the people charged with actually turning the keys to launch the missiles said, no, I'm not going to do it. But a former Pentagon official told the committee, hearing all this stuff, that the president could appoint a new general and defense secretary to carry out his orders. Further evidence, none of it reassuring, that Trump has unilateral power. There's no check and balance on this psychotic son of a bitch. Nothing. Ed Markey, senator of Massachusetts, Democrat. Ted Lieu, representative of California, Democrat, have together introduced legislation to bar Trump from launching a first nuclear strike without a declaration of war by Congress. I thought that was in the Constitution to begin with, but apparently we have to have a new law affirming that. Now, under this bill that Markey and Lieu have suggested, a president would still have the power to retaliate if this country was attacked. But what they're trying to do with this bill is restrain an ignorant savage like Trump, who just might decide, well, fuck him, and launch nuclear weapons. That's Trump's mindset. Well, fuck him, I'll show him. And another idea that's being floated would be to stipulate that the vice president or the secretaries of state and defense, or all three, have to concur in any decision to strike first with nuclear weapons. The Times editorial says because such changes could affect the country's ability to deter adversaries with the threat of a rapid nuclear attack, they must be carefully considered. I see that written down, and I can read the words, but I think the country has to have the ability to deter adversaries with the threat of a rapid nuclear attack. Anyway, the Republican-led Congress, which has shown very few signs of pushing back against presidential power. See, the members of the House and the Senate, for the most part, are not there to legislate or govern. They're there to snatch and grab. Snatch and grab what they can for themselves and snatch and grab what they can for the corporate overlords who put these useless bastards in office. So as far as what's going on at the other end of Pennsylvania Avenue in the White House, they don't give a shit. They don't give a shit. They really don't. So they may end up taking no action on this issue whatsoever. That would be my guess as to the outcome. Bob Corker, the Republican chairman of the Senate Foreign Relations Committee, says he does not see a legislative solution at the moment, though, quoting him, over the course of the next several months, one might develop, end quote. Maybe so, but what is not debatable right now, what is not in question right now, is the fact that we have an unqualified, dangerously unstable freak in control of this country's nuclear arsenal and has the ability to use those nuclear weapons when, if he wants to, with no restrictions.